I was a huge Cyndi Lauper fan at the time, so it worked very well for me. As a matter of fact, Cyndi started kind of visiting the set while we were still shooting the movie. As a matter of fact, I remember the day that she first showed up to the set. She pulls up in a taxi. I thought, that's interesting. Why would Cyndi Lauper be using a taxi? But it's because she's like, New York girl, tough little New York girl. I use taxis. But, we didn't know at the time. And she comes pulling up to the set in a taxi, and we thought, why is Cyndi Lauper here, and why is she in a taxi? Very weird. And they, of course, didn't explain anything. And then Dick said, well, she's thinking about doing a song for the movie. Oh, okay, Goonies, Cyndi Lauper, weird, but okay, going with you on it, And then when we got to Hawaii, actually, was the first time that he premiered the song for us. And he sat us all kind of around the boombox, and he played it. He said, what do you think? And I said, that's terrible. That is the worst song I've ever heard Cyndi Lauper do. God, couldn't she have come up with something better? Number one.
So you really didn't like it?
No, I really didn't like it. Actually, a bunch of us did. There was a couple of us that were kind of like, everybody was like, wow, it's really cool that Cyndi Lauper did a song. But couldn't you have done something a little better? But it went number one. So who are we to complain, right? Oh, it's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable.
No, I go, I tour with my band around the country, and every city we stop in, there's people with Goonies shirts. There's, people yelling Goonies from the audience, which is always fun when you're doing a rock show to hear about Goonies. But Martha Plimpton is the one who said it. She said, I was doing Ibsen. I was doing Ibsen in the park, and somebody yells out, Goonies! Which is always very redeeming and rewarding as an actor of serious theater. In any event, so, it is interesting, the reach. And as a matter of fact, I'm traveling to Europe for a second time to do this kind of big collector's show out there, which I rarely do these things. This is, the second one I've done outside of the U.S., and this one is about 500,000 people come through the doors of this thing. It's just gigantic. And the last time I did it, it was myself, Sean Astin, and Robert Davi, and it's just, it's mind-blowing. There's people from every country. I had, a 90-year-old guy who drove all the way from Ireland to be there and get his Goonies poster signed. Go figure. The whole thing about that was I was actually the only one who missed out on the experience. I don't know if you've even heard that story or not, but I'm surprised Dick didn't tell you, because he loves to tell that story. Where's Mouth? Where's Mouth? You'll see it if you watch the tapes. What happened was my mom was a bit irresponsible in those days, and she was my parental guardian, and I was living with my grandparents at the time, and she arrived late to pick me up for the airport. So when I got to the plane, it was quite dramatic for a child. I got to the airport, and we were all excited about this trip to Hawaii, and we go up to the gate, and as we get up to the ticket counter at the front, I hear, Corey Feldman, please meet your party at, American Airlines, blah, 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 blah. Like, what are you doing? I've never even, really been in an airport by myself, you know what I mean? And my mom's kind of waiting at the ticket counter, and I'm running around through the airport, trying to find them, trying to figure out what these computer signs mean and where the gates are and all this kind of stuff, and looking on monitors and looking on boards and trying to figure it out. And they keep repeating it over and over and over. Corey, please meet your party. Corey, time I finally get there, literally, it's like a movie. I come running up, and I see the plane just pulling out of the gate, and I'm watching through the window. I'm like, terrible, very sad.
Sorry I brought that back up. I didn't
No. But in the end, it turned out fine. We did get to Hawaii eventually. We had to take 3 later flights, so we ended up getting there, I think, the evening after the surprise. So it was still the same day, at least, when I managed to get to Dick's house, and we had a barbecue with Alice Cooper. Alice Cooper was his neighbor, and he came and had a barbecue with us, which I don't know why Alice Cooper would want to hang out with 7 kids, but hey, it's all good. So we were told he was going to get there, I think it was 11 in the morning, and it was probably about 10:15. and I was standing there watching the shot, and I literally felt this presence take over the entire stage. Like everything just got like quiet, like you could hear a pin drop, just like this energy filled the room. And I just instinctually turned around, and sure enough, there he was walking straight towards me. It was kind of one of those weird cosmic moments of fate, you know, like, okay, this moment is going to change the rest of your life. And it did. So it was pretty weird.
Well,
I had built a relationship with Steven Spielberg based on the fact that I was supposed to originally appear in the film E.T., and that's kind of how the whole relationship started. I was cast in the role of Elliot's best friend in the movie, which was later rewritten and written out. So at the time, you know, I guess you would say Steven and I started some sort of courtship, if you will, to where I was hanging out with him on the sets of Poltergeist, and he had a couple different stages that he would move between, and he was kind of giving me the tour, if you will, and showing me how things worked, and you know, what the experience was like working with him and things like that, kind of prepping and building for our relationship of me being in E.T. And then when the script went through a major rewrite, I was obviously heartbroken to no longer be a part of that film, and he felt very badly about it, and he made a commitment to me, which is that you'll be in my next film. The next film ended up being Gremlins. So he called me up and said, we're doing Gremlins, and I'd like you to meet the director, Joe Dante. I did. Joe and I hit it off well, great, you know, whatever. We did another picture together after that, and it was a great experience for all of us. And after Gremlins finished production, I figured Steven would probably forget all about me and not remember my name much after that. And at that point, I got a call from him kind of out of the blue, which said, you know, I'd like you to come down to Amblin, because they had just kind of newly formed Amblin at that time, and I'd like you to meet with me about a project that I'm going to be doing. I said, great. So I went down, I met with Steven. He told me all about it. He said, I'm doing this great movie. It's, you know, 7 kids on an adventure, and, you know, pirate ships and booby traps and caves, and that's about all I can tell you. What do you think? I'm like, yeah. When do we start? You know, kind of thing. And he said, well, I'm going to, you know, I'll let you know, I'll keep you posted, and, you know, we'll move forward at some time in the future. Probably about a month or two later, I guess the decision was made that Steven wasn't actually going to direct the film himself. And at that point, they brought on Dick, and he said, well, you know, called me kind of again, and actually I had to go in and read for the role. And one interesting little anecdote is that sitting in the waiting room at Amblin, the day that I had to go in and read for Steven and Kathleen Kennedy and all of them, was Corey Haim. And that was the first time we met unofficially. And he was reading for the part of Mouth, which he did not get, obviously. Dick is senile, absent-minded, forgetful, rude, belligerent, and distasteful. Besides that, I love him to death. No, he is, I have to say, one of the most solid, unique, wonderful, heartwarming people I've ever met in this industry. He's honest, he keeps his word, he does what he says he's going to do, and on top of all of it, he does good things, not just in his work and his craft, but as a human being. He's an animal rights activist, he's a humanitarian, he gives and gives and gives and gives until he can't give anymore. He's been there so much for me in my life, and he's such an important part of my life. You know, he's literally been like, you know, the father I never had in a lot of regards. And that bond was built on the set of the Goonies. I mean, he was, you know, one of the great things about working with Dick is very firm, very strong and determined in, you know, what his choices are. But at the same time, will always take the time for a laugh and kind of break up the monotony of the seriousness of the situation. And that's so commendable in a director, because I know how difficult it can be to keep things, you know, moving forward, to keep things on track, and you get so much stress because you have so many things kind of impeding and breathing down on you. So to be able to kind of remove yourself from it and have a practical joke or have a laugh, or, you know, just make somebody laugh when they're almost this close to tears because that's where they're at in the moment of the scene, that's a great gift. It's an amazing gift, and that's why he's so successful. Okay, I just have to say, for the history books, I've gotten tremendous email response about this, and website, and questions, and blogs, and it's kind of been out there for years now, and it's everywhere. So I just want to diffuse this issue for the record. Sean Astin and I love each other. We're great friends. Our families are friends. We've gone to dinner with the families. No bad feelings whatsoever between us. And as a matter of fact, we're hoping to work on some stuff in the future together. So just for all those people out there who watched the DVD commentary and got the wrong idea, because there's this rumor going around, I'm sure you've heard about it, that him and I got in some terrible fight, and that's why he left in the middle. And the truth of the matter is, he left because he was actually presenting an award to Joey Pants. So he had to leave for that purpose, and he had prior business obligations or whatever. But so for the record, Sean and I are in love, and we'll be getting married very soon.
Well, it's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing after 25 years that the passion for the movie in terms of the fans has just continued to grow. And I think it's pretty, for me, the answer of why that has happened is it's very clear. The movie was made with love from top to bottom. Everybody, it represented something very special to everyone at the time that it was made. Even Dick Donner, who is barrel-chested and has so many things that he does, he really, in an important, special part of his life, this meant something to him. And he from Dave Grusin, who did the music, all of the actors, the cinematographer, everybody puts their passion into it. And I think when you do that and you get a little bit lucky, I think the style of movie that they made was just almost at the end of the way that kind of movie was made. And I think it struck a chord. And I think the people who are involved in the movie continue to be proud of it and continue to enjoy that the fans are having such a good time. So that's why we have a 20th anniversary and a 25th anniversary, and people like this documentary crew and whatever just want to keep it alive. So it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. It was made with love, and I know for all the people who've asked if there's going to be a sequel, that there will absolutely be a sequel, be it next year or in 20 years, there will be a sequel to this movie or a remake. Hopefully what Dick is saying about a musical will come to pass sooner rather than later. And what we did is very special, and it's perfect. It's locked in its time. But it will, like any of the comic books, any of the other franchises that grow and get reinvented, this one will. And it'll have a new video game. I'm all about the video game. Let's do it. Corey wants a video game. Yeah, I've done Lord of the Rings video games. When's Warner Brothers going to step up and make it happen for a, you want to do a video
Goonies
game?
Video game.
Yeah.
We need to do it.
I want to practice my voice over the, right from the.
You got that perfect.
When you do it as a kid, it just locks
it just
in.
kind of builds in. It's like riding a bike. You never forget how to inhale.
Yeah. Well,
And lastly, really quick, working with these kids, was it?
this kid?
Or, you guys
We used to bug each other.
We did?
Yeah, sometimes. I remember.
You know what's funny? I was looking at these pictures from the classroom that
Yeah,
somebody gave me
yeah,
yesterday from
in the
Rhoda's
little-
stuff, and I looked like I was a little brat. I mean, I was a bit of a
You
brat,
were a brat
back in those days.
but you were sort of. You're supposed to be.
I guess that was my character. It was method. It was method.
But we were family.
But we've grown up, and now we really are like.
No, but
brothers.
even then, even though like in a family when you argue with each other, you know that. And we didn't have overt arguments, but there
No,
was
not you and I, but there
Martha.
were- yeah.
Yeah.
Martha.
I was so furious at her.
Yeah.
You got along with her pretty good though.
No, we had a few fights.
Because
Do you
she
remember
could
the
tell
part
that you're
where
being a brat.
we were knocking each other in the ground?
My money was on her in any fight, though, just so you know.
She's from New York. What can you say? She knows the dirty tricks. Anyway, the Ghostbusters video game that they just put out. Have you seen it yet?
No.
It's brilliant. Harold Ramis, Dan Aykroyd.
I remember the
Bill Murray. They all did it. They
Yeah,
all
but I
came
remember
back.
one from when it first came out.
No, but I'm saying right now
The
they
new
just
one.
made a sequel of the movie in a video game form.
Well, I have a perfect
can do that.
idea for the sequel of how it should go, like a 3-act structure in my mind, but it's top secret.
Let's hear it. We're all waiting.
have to do with aliens. Any sort of.
Wow. In the game, if you have like a, what do they call this, like an egg? What do they call those in a game when you
Easter egg.
An Easter egg, yeah. An Easter aliens come out of the, yeah, something like that.
Well, sure. Instead of going to find a treasure chest this time, make it 2010. The Goonies go to find a pod.
A pod.
A pod.
An iPod. No, here's the thing. Here's what I want to say. I want to say something about Corey. You know, you asked why the film continues to be, why the fan base continues to grow. You know, at certain moments, people pick up the torch and run with it. And you guys, the documentary crew, have done yeoman's work over the years. Yes. Really, you know, finding cool little things and respecting the fan base and doing that. Corey has sort of picked up the mantle. He so believes in the sequel. He so believes in us kind of staying connected with each other. And he's, particularly for this event here, really, it's really impressive. You put out some serious energy to do it, and I really admire
but let
that.
me say this about Mr. Astin.
I'm great, though.
Hold on.
I'm great.
Hold on.
I'm great.
This guy was the first guy to call me the day that Corey Haim died. He was the first guy to call me the day that Michael Jackson died. So when it comes to brotherhood and being a real friend and what it's all about, this man is responsible, and that's why we're all here today. That's why we're all connected. So I give it back to you. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
This is the best of my recollection is that Donner finished the first unit first, and Stephen had 2 days left with the Fratellis and the kids. So as a joke, Donner had gone back to his house in Maui, and Stephen sent all of us, the kids and chaperones and Donner and Dobby and Matuzak and Annie and me and our spouses, and we all crashed at Donner's house. They got Donner out of the house. He went to buy an answering machine, and when he came back, they rented a big bus, and we'd taken all of our luggage, and we emptied our luggage out on there in Donner's living room. And we had, you know, and there is film. I don't know who has it, but there is film. You guys should get that film. I had it. I mean, Stephen gave everybody a copy, and it was hysterical. And we had a barbecue, and it was like supermarket sweet. There was a guy named Mark, who was Stephen's assistant, that had a big bag of money. And Stephen was smart enough to after we spent the day and evening with Dick, to send us on another island. Because the kids were really, it became like the kids were really needy, and they were really, you know, were all over Donner all the time, vying for his attention. And Corey was always losing stuff. He was crying out for help even back then. God bless him. I love that kid, and I'm glad that he's got his act together. But you know, he lost his shoe. He was, you know, I lost my shoe. Okay, I have to buy him a pair of shoes. But it was great. It was one of the great vacations. It was one of the great gifts. I mean, Spielberg was very generous, and we went off to different islands. And if I wanted to go scuba diving, the guy'd give me money. If I wanted to go dinner, the guy'd give me money. And it was great. It was a great job. I remember there was a Super Bowl Sunday, and we were in a store. No, we were in Bodega Bay in this really new hotel, and they rented the convention conference hall thing, and they put these big flat screens, and we watched the Super Bowl. And Matuzak was in a crisp white shirt, really starched. And during the halftime, he went outside, and I have a picture. I have a bunch of pictures too. We should talk to Sarah about how I can get some of these pictures that I've collected. But I was like this. I mean, he was enormous. The guy was 6'6", 6'7", and 5 feet wide. And I said, "Tooz, what's up, man? You all right?" And he goes, "Joey, this is hard. You know, to watch that football game was really hard on him, because he was a warrior. You know, he liked to kill people, and football was his salvation. And I think that it was one of the things that destroyed him in the end, was the fact that his body wasn't strong enough, and you know, he was just wounded from all the years of football and fighting, and he was a real warrior.
That you might want
Dick Donner Dick Donner is the most fun filmmaker I ever worked with. He was smart. He loved to laugh. When you're making a comedy, he's the guy that you should be directed by, because if he's laughing, you know you're funny. And he has this bellowing voice. It'd be great, you know, and he yells at you during the take. He's got such style, and he knows where he's going to cut, so he can actually yell at you. And I think the things that I remember about Dick were like, you know, it's only a 2-hour movie. Cut 20 minutes out of it. You know, like if the scene was going on too long, you know, faster. Jesus Christ, will you hurry up? And I mean, he would have made a great baritone. He could give, you know, Pavarotti a run for his money. You know, it's like when these things are happening to you, you kind of almost take it for granted. You have no idea, because you're just making a movie and you're happy to be there. And you know, I remember that I was somewhat awestruck. I remember Key and his mom, and back in those days they had these little square boxes that they gave all of the actors. It was like our dressing rooms, and they rolled them around on the Warner Brothers lot. And Key had a bunch of brothers and sisters, and his mom had a wok, and she would make these great, you know, Vietnamese food that we would all eat. She would feed half the crew. The infamous day when Michael Jackson came to the Goonies set to visit everybody, boy, oh boy, was that a mistake. And you know, when Cyndi Lauper did the infamous video for the movie. But it was great. It was great. It was great. The whole thing with the, you know, me pulling off my wig, you know, the bats, you know, that came out of Davi saying that I was bald. And, you know, and Davi and I, the stuff that we did to each other. And he nailed my dressing room door shut, and I couldn't get out. I was locked in my dressing room. You know, we stole his license plate. He'd done a movie called City Heat, and we stole his license plate off his car. We kept, you know, Steven's parking spot on the stage, it was like Steven, Joey Pants next to Steven, and Robert Davi next to Steven. So it was like you know, we were next to Steven Spielberg's parking spot. And we painted over Davi's name. You know, we would just the stuff that we would do to him. And then both Steven and Dick would go like, oh, that's great, we got to put that in the movie. We'd put that in the movie. So they basically put our hatred in the movie, and it became this sibling rivalry that happened. Was totally not scripted. It was just totally put in there.
And you, of course, were Mama's favorite, but we found out from the movie.
Yeah, I was Mama's favorite. I wonder if I was Annie's favorite. I think I was Annie's favorite in some ways. I mean, she actually when we did that movie, she was my sponsor to join the Academy. And to join the Academy, you have to have 2 members of the Academy. And Sean's mom, Patty Duke, came to visit the set one day, and I introduced myself and asked her to sign my thing, and she did. And that's how I got in. Wait a minute. Hello? Yeah. Hello, Bernie. I'm in the middle of an interview. Let me call you right back.
Your children watch the Goonies?
Oh, yeah. They love the Goonies. Well, because of the pirates. You know, Goonies was the first thing that dealt with pirates. And, you know, you see how big pirates are. And so my little sons, my twin boy, Nicholas, you know. And it's funny to see Goonies it's a classic. I've been in places with bigger movie stars in this country, and where they think they're getting sought after by a group of these college kids, and it's me, from Goonies. I mean, it's amazing where the really, it's all over the place. No matter where you go, there's kids love. There's something, you know, parents, kids, and all those kids that were probably 11 and 9, watching it 4 or 5, 10 times their whole. You know, there's something that it hit up. It touches on the. I think that whole thing is our time now. Our time, you know, and the rich guys and the you know, no parents. So people relate to that, you know. It was like an our gang, modern day our gang. So anyway, so it's this moment when Joey's character lights the gasoline that he's put around there, and they spent, the way it was scripted was a dollar bill was supposed to light on fire, and then the dollar bill, he drops the money, from the bank robbery that we had, a dollar bill. He throws that onto the whatchamacallit. So I always felt in the back of my mind that moment, I said, well, that's going to be difficult to do it. I mean, because the bill and to land in there, it's going to float away. And they tried. So they were trying takes. And I said, you know what? Why doesn't he just pull out his gun? Or I said to him, actually, I said, why don't I just pull out my gun and, and well, he's trying to do that. But we wanted to give that moment to Joey since I had the escape. And then I also, coming in through the whole thing, there was a moment when the door is locked. Open the door, Francis. Well, that always happens in life. So I said, you know what? This moment always goes down like that. And I saw there was a hatch roof. I says, why don't we have that? He locks it just as I'm doing that, and I come in through the roof area. And they loved that. So that whole little sequence there, that was built around, I don't know if anybody will remember, but you can see, you know, I come up with interesting things. But that whole sequence was, not whole sequence, but shooting with the gun, and then the door thing, blah, 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 and coming in through the thing.
It's interesting.
But they were very open. So that's what's incredible. The other moment too is when Data. Remember we're climbing up the rocks. Now Data at a certain point is supposed to get rid of Jake Fratelli. Do something to make and I forgot how it was written, but it didn't seem like it would work really, because here's the kid. If he's there, I'm going to grab him. You know what I mean? If he's any in proximity, I'm, you know, more imposing. I said, well, here's a kid that has gimmicks. He's got gadgets all over himself. I says, what if just as I'm up there, he presses a button and that little boxing thing comes out. And they looked at each other. Steven Spielberg looked at whoever it was there and looked at it and said, you know what, let's do that. And they actually waited a day or two to have that built so we could shoot that. So they were really open to suggestions.
I can't believe that you came up with both these shots. We have some of the storyboards from a lot of these scenes, and those, at least especially the first one, isn't in that. It starts up with the police chase, and so I always thought, well, what kind of happened to some of these? So you kind of helped just build some of those.
Yeah, but that's nothing. The actors do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's just so
Yeah,
funny.
but no, actors, you have an idea, you're on the set. I mean, anyone, you know what I mean? You have to say, okay, well, what can I do here? And you come up with that kind of thing. It's like even when I come in with the Italian, I said, well, here were the Fratellis. Now these kids are here at the restaurant. Why don't I speak the mother tongue? And it becomes a little more bizarre for them, you know what I mean? And they were great. They were open to that. And so.
Well, did you have to teach Mama Fratelli Italian then for that?
Yeah, that's why it was, yes, zita. Gave her something simple to say.
That's great. Okay. Now,
There was a time when we were supposed to be on set on a Will Notify. And they said, I said, well, Joey said, well, let's go. We can just drive around and with Ann Ramsey. I said, but Joe, we're going to check in. He says, they're never going to call us. So we drove 2 hours away or something like that, and all of a sudden there's a phone call, emergency. They need us back and right away. And I said, you see, Joey, because the weather had changed, and now we're speeding back, and there is a cop stops us. I'm driving, and I say, officer, we're doing a Steven Spielberg, Richard Donner film. It's called The Goonies. We just got a call. We're late. And Joey says, you know, officer, don't believe him. You know, he's, instead of backing the play, Joey, you know, but it was very funny. I was actually signed to do Rambo 2. I was supposed to go to Acapulco to do Rambo 2. And my agent called up and said, hey, you've got a call from Warner Brothers, Richard Donner, and they're doing the Spielberg, Richard Donner film, Goonies. They want to meet with you. I says, well, I'm doing Rambo. I'm leaving 3 weeks or a month. I said, and I was getting in shape. I was in great shape for this great character. And he says, well, he said, you should go. What do you have to lose? He says, and also, this happens all the time, and they work out schedules. That film, Goonies, will be 5 months. They only need you for a month on the Rambo thing. We could work out dates. He says, go. So I went. And, of course, we get the offer. Now, I had to I tried to call the production company, the Rambo production company, the agent, to try to work out the dates, and then I wound up calling Sylvester Stallone myself, who's since become a friend and stuff, and I knew him back then, and he wanted me to do the film, and I tried to call him, but they were in the jungles, and it was difficult to reach him, and I was talking through a third party, and the agent couldn't reach, and this and that, and then all of a sudden what happened was we got a phone call one day, and all I was saying was, my responsibility is to the Rambo film. That was the first one. He says, I just want to see if the dates could be worked out. Warner Brothers, the production company, I said, I'll fly back and forth at my own expense. Can we work out the dates? A week goes by and we get a phone call one morning. My agent calls me up and says, you're released from Rambo. I go, okay, set the deal, because we had to set the deal, with the Goonies. That's 5 months, I suppose, and you're thinking, okay. And so we set the Goonie deal next minute. And then I get a phone call from the producers of Rambo. And then Sylvester Stallone calls up, who released Robert Davi from this movie. I rewrote the character for him and this and that. And it was, I felt really bad now. And then I said, but we would, it was nothing. Now I was like, I was in the middle of a thing.
You make a movie, you really kind of make it for yourself. And a lot went into that, the making of that. It was a very passionate film, and it was kind of an insane process. And when it was done, like every movie, it's done, either you walk away from it or you say, wow, I love this, it's been a great experience, and I hope people like it. It is as simple as that. I hope people come. And interesting, they sent the print to me in Maui. I was staying in Maui. I got a house there, and I ran it in a local theater to see the quality of the picture, and I got a whole bunch of people to come in, and that was really my first preview with an audience. It was before we screened it all, and I was embarrassed to ask them at first, because I asked from this age to this age to this age, and they all really loved it. And I said, oh my God, what have we done here? What have we rendered? But up until that time, you never know. You run it with an audience and they tell you you're good, you're bad, or they're indifferent. Yeah, I know what you're trying to ask, like a genre film. I mean, I had no idea what I was making. Honest to God. I mean, I had, how many kids, how many Goonies were there? 27 or 30? It seemed like that every morning. I had no idea. I knew we were trying to make it slightly a little harder edge than, we talked about penises and swear words and do the whatever it was, the stomp with the belly, and telling the Spanish housekeeper these terrible obscene things. So it was a little more than a kid's film. And how far it went the other way, I have no idea. I didn't have any idea when we were doing it. It was just, as I said, you settle into something that works for you personally. And I don't know about other filmmakers, but a lot of people say, well, you got to think of your audience. I'm the audience. I'm my audience for my films. And if I screw up really good, because I screwed up for myself. So I don't go out with an intent to have a genre film of this, a children's film or an adult film, or is it breaking over into the mature world of insanity? But with Goonies, totally off the top of our heads. Things would just happen. We'd improvise. The kids were just geniuses. There's things that happen. Some directors work. A lot of directors work by the written word, and the written word's got to be there. But I like the written word, and then I like improvisation. And a lot of actors, you can say, I tell this story a lot because a lot of actors you can say, because they have an expository scene, you can say, hey, what if the phone rings? And they look at you and say, what do you mean? Who's on the phone? I said, well, that's up to you. Maybe the phone rings in the middle of your diatribe here, and it's your dentist. You have to have your 4 teeth pulled out. It's your dog got hit by a car. You just won the lottery. I don't know. It's up to you. You pick up. And they say, well, I don't know. And then you say, oh, forget it. And then there's other actors you could say, the telephone, they said, oh, leave me alone. I got it. And they run with it. Those kids All I had to do was throw one line in. They ran. They knew who they were. They loved their characters. They loved the story. They were putty in your hands. They were ready, and they were magic. So I don't know what the hell your question was, but I think, did I answer it? Oh, I hope so. I go off on tangents, too. I personally love to shoot in locations. I feel it's tangible. You can touch a wall. It's real. You go to a window and you look out and you can see infinity. You're on the stage. You don't have that. You have a phony backdrop. The set's not real. It's not visceral. And so we looked at it. There was a wonderful cameraman. I said, "Can we light this? Can we make it work?" He said, "No problem." People said they'd love to have us in their home. And those kids felt like it was their home. I mean, it was real to them. When Chunk came through that gate on the other side, I mean, he'd been through that gate 1,000,000 times. "Oh, guys, not again," you know. And the Rube Goldberg that made the gate open, and everything felt real, and you could go from inside out, inside out. I love that. Well, yeah, I'll tell you this. I'd like to do Goonies too. A couple of writers came up with a good idea. We've been trying for a lot of years to find the right writers in the right situation. Whether that's the one we're going to use, I don't know. There's reluctance on Warner Brothers' part, because I don't think they believe there's that following when you can't go anywhere in the world and mention Goonies as a club or a following. And Stevens Company, believe it or not, doesn't think they want to put up the money for it. But there are companies that have come to us that say they will finance it with Warner Brothers. So my next step is to go to those companies, make the deal with Warner Brothers, raise some money, and start having some scripts written. But I guarantee you, whatever script is done, it'll have as many of the old Goonies in as well as new Goonies. And our story, where the new Goonies were being introduced to who they were by Data. And his English is not very good, so how do you say Goonies with a Chinese accent? Gloonies. So Gloonies. So these kids are raised knowing about the Gloonies. They know nothing about the Goonies. But it's all going to happen. It'll happen. It'll happen. Enough you write in, complain, say, where is it? We want to see it. You'll see it. I promise. And it'll be the old and the new.
Some of the questions, most people are fascinated with the attic, and the attic is, you'll see that later on, but it's very small and maybe used as a model, but certainly not where they did the filming. But people want to know if there's treasure here, and there isn't. I have it all. It's in the bank. There's no treasure. But as far as memorabilia, anything, the man who owned this house before, apparently his grandparents lived here at the time that the movie was made, and I understand that substantial amount of work was done on the house structurally for Warner Brothers to actually be able to film here. He said the house would actually move back and forth, so I think they shored up some things. And the fence, the kids want to know where the fence went, where's the chicken, where's the bowling ball, and it's like the chicken's probably dead, but I don't know where the rest of the stuff went. Apparently the grandparents didn't want it, so the fence and everything was just dismantled and thrown away or given away, which it's sad, but it's not here. There's no treasure, and there's no fence or bowling ball. You were asking about visitors?
Yes.
Lots. Mostly in the summertime, or the biggest amount, have from 40 to 50 a day. In the summertime, could be even the middle of the week. Weekends are more, and then wintertime it slows down a little bit because of the wetness and so on and so forth. When I first bought the house, because the floors were unfinished and it was such a disaster, it was kind of humiliating to let people come in because they thought, oh my gosh, this place is just dreadful. The raccoons would come in and the birds would fly in, and it was, we had a pet rat there for a while. But anyway, I would let the kids come in the house because it didn't matter, they'd just traipse through. And I've had kids from Japan, Australia, Germany, France, literally from all over the world, and it is, it's just a universal love for that movie.
We got all the footage we could find, and by the time I got into it, they were so far along, they were editing and squeezing that down, and then the last thing we had to do was get the Goonies together. So, and then we went through and we found these boxes, like in the back of Dick's office at Warner Brothers, that had like, you know, storyboards and buttons and posters and pictures and all this really cool stuff that would have been great on there, but we didn't have room. And we found one piece of footage when we were looking for the stuff through, we were looking through, asking Mr. Spielberg's office to find stuff. And they found the original tape where they played a practical joke on Dick. And so it was the end of the movie, and Dick loves this story, so I've heard it 1,000 times. It was the end of the movie, and the kids stopped talking to him. And like, they wouldn't come anywhere near him, so he thought that they were like typical Hollywood kids, and they had like moved on to the next movie, and he got upset about it, because they were like family to him, and he just got upset. So the kids wouldn't talk to him. He left the picture, and he flew to Maui, or went to his house in Maui, and was just gonna relax. And he, his next door neighbor came and was like, "Would you take me into town? My car's broken down," or something like that. And he was like, "Okay," so he takes him into town. All he wanted to do was relax. Takes the neighbor into town. She drags it out, drags it out, drags it out. And he comes home, and the TV is on. And he's like, "I didn't leave the TV on." So he goes, and he walks outside, and then he walks down to the beach, and Josh Brolin is coming up with a surfboard. And Dick's like, "What are you doing here?" He's like, "I thought I was getting away from you kids." And the kid was like, "Oh, well, you know, my mom lives down the beach. We were just surfing and hanging out, and I didn't even know this was your house." And Dick said the whole time he's like noticing the kids like looking over his shoulder. So Dick turns around, and you can see in the video, you can see Dick talking to the kid, and then he turns around and he sees everybody, and Dick like hits his knees, and it's just like, "What are you guys doing?" And the kids are all tackling him, and Ann Ramsey's sitting there smoking a cigarette, and they're all and it's like, I mean, they're all piling on him, and Spielberg's shooting the, you know, thing, and it's great. We couldn't use it on the DVD because Warner Family Video, people were smoking, expletives may have been dropped, so we couldn't use that. So the last thing we had to do was get everybody together. So we started calling everybody, and I mean, it was one of the easiest things I've ever done, because they were all like, "Well, okay," and I said, "Yeah, well, Dick's gonna be there." And then, okay. Like, as soon as you said Dick was gonna be there, they were all like, there in a heartbeat. So Jonathan had the great idea to shoot the whole thing, and we always joked about making it like the Last Supper. There's a Dick in the middle and all the kids on all the side. And we put it in a studio, and we got there, and they were all like just sort of like hanging around the room and like saying hello and everything, and then Dick walks in the door. They're all, you know, and like, seriously, as soon as they walked in the door, it was like watching the movie, because they all came around him, and they were all talking, and everybody was talking, and he was like, okay. And it was, being an outsider and being somebody that grew up like loving the Goonies and like watching this whole thing, it was really surreal. And they all instantly seemed to like lapse right into their like Goonies personas, you know, like Josh Brolin was off to the side, you know, Mikey was sitting there right with Dick, like, "Hey man, we're doing this," you know, and Mouth was over there making jokes, and Data was off in the back, you know, just kind of like minding his own business and shaking his head at the rest of them, and, you know, Martha was, you know, rolling her eyes at them all and everything. I mean, they all were exactly like their characters, except for Jeff Cohen, who plays Chunk, is now a lawyer, and he was so well prepared. Like, if you watch the commentary again, we pulled out, it was Jonathan Gaines' idea to pull out to picture-in-picture whenever they actually had something interesting to say, because a lot of times on those commentaries it's all jibber-jabber just to fill space, because you're watching a movie and you're just kind of like, I have to talk. So whenever they had something interesting pertaining to the scene, you know, we pulled out onto the picture-in-picture, and almost all the time that every time we pull out, it's almost always because Jeff sits there and he's waiting, and then he remembered a scene specifically, and he goes through the whole thing, you know, and he remembers this little piece about it and this little piece about it, and they all sit there, and you can watch it on it. They all watch him like, oh man, yeah, I remember that. Like, instead of just sitting there, he like really came prepared because he's a lawyer, so he, I mean, that's what he does for a living now. But it was the strangest thing, and then I hadn't seen that movie on a big screen in forever. And so I'm sitting there watching it on a big screen with the Goonies behind me, all talking about it. It was pretty crazy. But before we went and saw that, I went over to Dick's house and brought a tape of it over. And so he sat there and watched it. And I don't know when the last time he had watched the movie, but it had been a long time. And we watched it, and he sat there and he was like, oh, I remember. Oh, I can't believe that. Oh, and yeah, we did this, and oh. And he was sitting there, and he was like, God, I loved that. Oh, this place was awesome. And he would just start telling these stories, and I was like, save it. You know, save it for tomorrow. But he was like falling in love with like the whole thing over again. And that was an amazing experience to sit there with him and watch that movie and like watch him fall in love with it all over again and watch how much he loved that. And you're sitting there like, and I was like, oh, tomorrow's going to be awesome.
Bunch of stuff that no one ever talks about in the Goonies. So this scene was called the Angel of Death scene, and there we are. We've got Mikey and Andy kissing in the cave. All of a sudden, this Angel of Death shoots out of a tunnel. The best part is that it's on a cart, which cracks me up. That a pirate would create a cart with little tiny wheels. They all like, they jump out of the way. The Angel of Death slams to the wall and crumbles, and Mikey comes out and says, and reacts to the surprise. So, great booby trap when you create this Angel of Death who runs into the wall and breaks apart. So awesome.
If anybody comes through here,
is it like some sort of elastic?
you ride out on your skateboard.
Let's cut to one of the scenes that's actually talked about a little bit. So, these gorillas escape from the zoo, and they show up to Troy's car at the gas station. So here we are at the gas station. Whoever has this car is complaining. The gorillas show up, and they somehow scare off these people. They jump in the car. There's a gorilla literally jumping in the car, and then they drive away. They drive away in a Mustang. Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention. They show up in a golf cart. So
they were already driving.
Yeah, they were already driving something. So these are out of sequence. They show up in a golf cart. They walk up to a gas station, scare the people away, and go into the Mustang and drive through town. Was that a good idea? All I heard was that Steven Spielberg thought that was a great idea. Not that great of an idea. So, the group of kids shows up at the restaurant. In front of the restaurant is a graveyard. It does not work. Who wants to go to a restaurant with a bunch of like gravestones in front of it? It just doesn't work. Here's a scene that's actually pretty interesting. Apparently, Andy and Steph aren't Goonies. Here's how it goes. They're in the scene where Mouth and everybody finds all that change and then gets the treasure. It's talking about the map. And then the scene where Andy takes the Goonie vow. So all of a sudden they're like, oh, take the oath. Oh, what's that? Oh, leeches! So the kids get frazzled and try to shake off the leeches. Here they are all dancing around. Data, all of a sudden, who apparently was carrying a car battery with him this whole time, puts two of the things into the water and kills all the leeches. So, and everyone's like shaking them off of them. And then she slaps Data in the face for shocking the water with a car battery. And then, out of the wishing well area, towards the tunnel exit through the waterfall. That was a scene that was supposed to be in the Goonies. This is the last of the interesting storyboard scans that we scanned as quickly as we could. First of all, Baby Ruth. How many people have quoted that the last 25 years? Baby Ruth. Well, here's the only indication in all of Goonies history, this one frame that basically is literally saying, Almond Joy bar between Sloth and Chunk. Sloth. Almond Joy? Almond Joy? That's ridiculous. So, here's a love scene, or a love interest that was never explored, and shouldn't have been explored. Here's what it comes down to. Sloth passes the camera. I'm just going to read this verbatim. Sloth expands, growing fierce muscles, bulging. And Steph says, Hunk City. I just don't know if it was a good idea to have Steph think that Sloth was a hunk. I didn't.
It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make
actually.
any sense. I know it's 2:24 in the morning, but that still doesn't make sense to me. A little bit disgusting.
Now Rosalita, I could see her with.
Yeah.
You know.
You put an odd secondary character with Chunk. It's great. He
Yeah.
ends up. But you know what we end up with? We end up with Chunk taking Sloth home to be like a family member. Who knows what would have happened to Sloth in real life after about 2 years?
He would have met somebody, because there's somebody for everybody.
You're right. You know what? I believe there's somebody for everybody. He would have found somebody. I assume.
It wouldn't have been Steph.
No.
The kids were just a kick to work with. They were really fun. They were just being kids. The funniest one, which I think is probably already out there, is when Chunk specifically was quite upset because there was only one McDonald's in Astoria. And he made a big deal out of that. So that was kind of humorous. And then we got to meet the kids' parents. They all came down, and we got to meet them and go around with them for a while. They were a lot of fun to be with.
Okay, the only Goonies story that I could probably relate to is when Steven Spielberg came here in his Learjet and landed at the Astoria airport. They had blocked off all the streets, and we were really impressed because, you know, hey, Steven Spielberg, you know, doesn't get any better than that, you know. Here's one of the greatest geniuses of this 20th century, you know, visiting our town. Richard Donner, you know, had done Superman, and it was really impressive, you know. We really had a lot of talent coming out of this town.
So here in the Donner's Company offices, one of the cool Goonie things that we have is the head of One-Eyed Willie, which when I first worked here had fallen off of this thing and the jaw was off, so I had to come in and glue Willie's jaw back on, which was really kind of weird. He looks a lot different without a bottom jaw, and he talks a lot less. And that's him. One-Eyed Willie.